Are you sitting on some items you need to imbue, but you haven't really tackled the Nightmare Zone yet and you're a little nervous to try? Well, a lot of people in my clan chat have also felt like they're kind of noobs with the Nightmare Zone, so I figured I'd make a little video explaining everything so that you don't have to be a noob anymore and you can imbue that black mask, those rings, or that salve amulet. First off, you're gonna have to toss a coin into the coffer. Now, it's not free, but it's also pretty cheap, so just throw a couple 100k in there. It'll cost you 26,000 GP every session, and you should be able to have your first item imbued within your second session, so only 52k. Now, for your first time here, you're going to want to wear a little bit of prayer gear, but don't go overboard. You're still going to want some strength bonus so that you can deal damage. Now, what I have here is a pretty easy to obtain kind of budget setup. I don't have all of the best gear on, but you should be able to recreate or replicate this yourself. And if you can't, use whatever substitutions you need. It's really not that important because we're not going to be in there for that long. What's important here is that you're going to be praying protect from melee, so you have some prayer potions. I don't think I ended up using even one while I was in there. And, you know, some super combats or even super strength and super attack potions if you're an Iron Man. Now that you've paid the man and you have your inventory and gear all set up, you're going to select Customizable Rumble Hard, and you're going to go ahead and select a few easy bosses that are melee only. Now, I'm going to have a list of these down below in the description so that you can go ahead and choose from that instead of trying to pause the video and see exactly what I have going on here. Once inside, you're just going to camp protect from melee, drink your potion, and go to town. Use your special attack weapon whenever you've got it, and otherwise you're just going to be pretty much AFK killing these monsters for about 20 to 30 minutes, however long it takes you to get about 100,000 points. That's going to be our first goal. That's going to be enough points to get started on some absorption and overload potions to come back in for a slightly more advanced method. This will net you anywhere between about 150 to 250,000 points depending on your levels themselves, as well as the bosses that you have. You can bring in a few more bosses for the prayer method, but since you're in here for such a short period of time, it doesn't make a huge difference. You'll see here I was getting about 210,000 points per hour. Back in with a slightly different boss setup and was able to get around 280,000 points per hour, so you can kind of fiddle around with which bosses seem good to you as long as they only attack you with melee attacks and don't hit through prayer. Now, there's some power-ups as well that'll help speed up your time in the Nightmare Zone. The first one is just always good to use. That's the Power Surge. It will replenish your special attack energy incredibly quickly and allow you to use your spec like your Dragon Dagger, your Crystal Halberd, your Dragon Claws. You'll be able to use that over and over and over again. You can even bring an Ancient Mason for the prayer method to constantly restore your prayer, but you really won't use that many prayer potions anyways, so I don't necessarily recommend it. You'll also always want to click on the Zapper and Recurrent Damage power-ups. These are going to just straight up kill your opponents faster, and they won't be limiting your experience rates by much, if any at all. And the final one, the Ultimate Force, is one that you're going to want to use very sparingly. In this method, you won't use it at all because all of your enemies are easy enough to kill. That's why we chose them. However, in some methods, if a lot of the enemies are almost impossible to kill, if not completely impossible, you're going to go ahead and use that to clear them out and get in a new wave. Congratulations, you finally have some Nightmare Zone points. Now, you might be tempted to stay in there using the prayer method and imbue all of your items, but instead you're going to want to hop out and grab absorbs and overloads, because these two items in combination are insane. Now, what we're going to do is use the overload potion to boost all of our stats over 5 minutes, but when we use it, it also damages us for 50, which is going to help us get down to 1 HP, which is where we want to be, not just for Darox, but because an enemy can only ever hit us for our current health, and if we keep our current health at 1, they'll keep hitting 1s on us, but instead of hitting our health, they're going to hit our absorption potions, which will take that damage for us. So using the 1 HP absorption method in addition to Darox is going to give us some insane damage and points per hour, but if you guys don't have Darox, don't worry. If you don't have above 90 health, it's probably not going to be worth it anyway, and you guys can just bring in your max strength gear or a full set of obsidian. And if you guys come in here with a decent number of prayer potions to camp piety or whatever your damage boosting prayers are, some absorptions and some overloads, you should be pretty good. Now, the bosses here are a little complicated and confusing, and I'll post a list below of some of the ones that I don't want you using, but the important bosses here that we're going to turn on are going to be Dream Mentor, Song of the Elves, Recipe for Disaster, and Desert Treasure. Now, if you don't have these quests done, that's all right, but I recommend getting those 4 done as soon as you can. Not only are they some of the biggest unlocks on any account, but the bosses that you unlock in the Nightmare Zone give you a ton of points per hour, and using this method, I can get a consistent 1.8 1.8 million points per hour, and sometimes higher depending on my boss spawn luck. Your points per hour are going to change a lot here depending on which bosses you have and which ones spawn. You'll get a lot more points for things like Dream Mentor and Song of the Elves bosses, and if you have some annoying bosses like from Recipe for Disaster or Desert Treasure, they're going to really mess up your rates per hour. Now, a lot of people will turn these off because they're so annoying to deal with, but you will get so many points from having all of Desert Treasure and or Recipe for Disaster enabled that I highly recommend it. You basically just have to deal with it, try and kill what you can, and otherwise just wait for an Ultimate Force power up. But even with all of those annoyances, we're still getting huge points per hour here. Now, the other method that you can do if you want to is to drastically prune the list of enemies and focus on a hybrid of experience and points per hour. So next up, I'm going to use full obsidian, but don't feel compelled to get it yourself. You guys can bring in whatever setup you want, that as long as it's your best melee gear. Now we're going to dramatically cut down on the number of bosses that we have, and it's going to look very similar to one of our prayer setups where we were just trying to kill as many bosses as we could easily. And this is going to focus a combination of experience and points per hour. You're going to be in here much longer this way, but it will make your time in here pretty efficient because of the experience that you'll be getting the whole time in. So we're just going to activate the bosses that we feel we can kill easily, and we're going to use as many as we can to try and increase our points per hour. And using this method, you'll be able to get really good experience rates, upwards of 90 to 100,000 per hour. You won't get quite the 120,000 per hour as you might with only the easiest bosses, but you also should get a decent number of points, around 250 to 450,000 per hour, depending on your bosses. Now, I made this video for people who are feeling some sort of stress over trying and learning Nightmare Zone for the first time, and I thought that the best way that I could show you guys how to do it yourselves is just doing it myself at the very end in a little bit of freeform. So I've gone through and checked off some of these bosses that I don't want to face. Stuff like Witch's Experiment or Nazastarool are going to be multi-phase bosses that won't give us many points overall once we've killed them all. Elvarg is going to drain our stats a ton without an anti-dragon shield, even through the overload. Slagilith can only be damaged with pickaxes, similar to Tanglefoot can only be damaged with magic secateurs. Glod is going to drain our prayer, same with Barrelchest. Giant Rock will knock us back. Chronozon can't be killed except with specific spells, same with Dagannoth Mother. And we're going to get rid of basically everything that we feel like is going to mess us up dramatically. And now we're going to come in here, overload, and then feel our locator orb to damage ourselves. If you don't have a locator orb, you need a Dwarven Rock Cake, and if you don't have a Dwarven Rock Cake, go back and start Recipe for Disaster, I guess. Get it, because Recipe for Disaster is going to be huge points in here, even if it is a little annoying. Now I'm going to show you guys just how annoying those bosses are to deal with, but also how many points you can get. I feel like that might be one of the hangups here in this video, is that people see all of these annoying bosses, the ones that freeze you from RFD and DT, and might think that it's not worth it, but I'm going to hopefully show you guys that it is worth it by killing a few here. So there's the inadequacy, and you guys are going to see right off the bat how exactly I can pull numbers like 1.8 million points per hour. I might go as low as 1 million per hour, it just kind of depends on what spawns, but I have also seen as high as 3 million per hour, but my average, you know, if I do it for an hour straight, the closest that I can reliably get to is about 1.8 million points per hour. So you can see killing the inadequacy once with this setup gave us almost 70,000 points by herself, and we're going to hopefully kill a lot more bosses from quests like Dream Mentor, Song of the Elves, that do give you a lot of points. If you don't have those quests done yet, it's alright, you won't see these numbers, but they should still be high enough to get all of your stuff imbued. I mean, I've imbued every single ring I've gotten. I've imbued a Suffering, a Salve, 2 Berserker's rings, 3 Warrior's rings. There's not even a reason to imbue those. I've imbued 2 Slayer helms. I don't know, I enjoy the Nightmare Zone, and whenever I see someone complain about it, I just think, man, I wish that there was some way I could communicate to them all of the information I have about it, and so now we're here, we're making a video about it. I'm praying piety to get the best experience per hour that I can get. My XP per hour looks super inflated right now because of the awesome Crystal Halberd specs. Crystal Halberd is one of my favorite spec weapons in the game, because I don't have Dragon Claws, or any of the God Swords, I suppose. But this is a pretty good one for here when we get the power up that'll give us infinite special attack energy. It's going to look really, really sweet. So Damis is one of those enemies that we're just going to leave alone. We're not actually going to try and kill it because the second form will drain our prayer. So instead, we're going to leave it alone. We won't activate the Zapper because we don't want to kill Damis. Instead, we're going to wait until there's an Ultimate Force power-up, and then we're going to activate that and go ahead and clear everything out of the room. And I'm hoping to just do this for a little bit to show you guys these points per hour because they are looking pretty sweet right now, or show you one of the big challenges. But if it goes on a little bit too long, then I will just end it and say thank you guys so much for watching this video. I haven't ever made a single RuneScape video before other than just a random unlisted thing to show someone how to kill Zulrah as an Iron Man, which I think would be another fun video to make in the future. I do love Iron Man content. If you guys want to see anything, any sort of guide or explanation of content that you've been nervous to try, or just have no idea how you're going to tackle it, then let me know and I might be able to help you out with it. That's kind of been my favorite part of being an Iron Man, is tackling these huge challenges before I can normally would feel okay taking them on. You know, I beat Recipe for Disaster before I had, 75 combat, got my quest cape at 97 combat, and just have really worked hard to, tackle all the content in the game while I'm under-leveled, under-geared, to try and learn how to do it and then help others figure it out themselves. So this is the Nightmare Zone for dummies. If you're still a noob after watching this, then I'm going to assume you skipped to the end or fell asleep, because if you just follow the steps that I did and just twist them to exactly your situation depending on the gear and items you have access to, you should be able to see very similar results. Maybe not this number of points per hour, but at least enough to get your first imbues. And anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Peace.